think that's as good as we're gonna get right there. Okay. I really didn't know how to begin this video. I have been wanting to do this for a while, and I've been talking to some of my subscribers and some fellow YouTubers about sharing how I got into plants. And it's going to be hard for me because I could go on and on and on. So I'm going to separate this into 3 videos. I'm hoping that I will be able to get those done, and they will be a little bit lengthy. I'm going to try to stay under 20 minutes. And I honestly did not know where to start. What does trauma, pain, and I'm talking about physical, emotional, spiritual, any kind of pain, we all know what that is. And what does that have to do with plants? And how does that fit into that category? There is a lot of studying being done and has been done with people who are going through addictions, men and women who are traumatized and who have post-traumatic stress syndrome, and also people who are going to therapy and counseling. They will take older men who are veterans out to sea for fishing, who have PTSD. And I was like, what does this have to do with anything about plants? And I just decided, sorry, you'll see my humidifier going. Squirrel, my son's home, so if you hear some noises. But I was like, what is this all going to have to do with plants and how I got started? And it has a lot, and I didn't realize it until I started talking to my therapist. Yes, I go and see a therapist. I have what you call post-traumatic stress syndrome, and I have been in survival mode my whole life, right from the get-go, from when I turned 2. So that is where I'm going to start. And I'm going to take you through a journey of my life and how I got started with plants. It wasn't just something that I was like, I'm going to do it because everybody else is into this, or because it's the trending thing right now. In fact, I usually do things that everyone else is not doing, just because that's me. That's how I work. That's how I operate. I don't like to be like everyone else, even though this is a huge thing on YouTube right now. But I wanted you to know a part of me and more of me than just plants. It will be a more serious subject, and it will be a very vulnerable place for me, but I feel like others need to hear this. I feel like others need to hear this and know that they are not alone, and that you don't need to hide who you are. And even though I know that that is a really sensitive area for some people, I just want to share that it doesn't have to be, and I want to be able to relate to my subscribers, to my friends. I don't even like calling you subscribers or followers. I like the term friends, because I just don't like the term followers. I don't like following. I don't like the term subscribing. I just don't like it. And I know I'm going on and on. Okay, so when I was 2 years old, I turned 2 in March, And that following May, I got something that you call E. coli. My mom said that my mom's passed away now, which is a whole nother subject I will go through. My mom had told me that it could have been from two things. It could have been from the raw milk that we got from our neighbors, and it also could be that when I was 2, I liked to get into the refrigerator and poke the cellophane wrapper on raw meat from the deli, cow's meat, and that was kind of around a few years before, maybe 5 years before the huge E. coli breakout from Jack in the Box and all of this stuff, and it was not caused by that. I believe what makes sense to me in my head, and nobody knows, is that it was from the raw milk from our neighbors. That the neighbors had such good intent and they loved us, and they gave my mom and dad this raw milk and goes, give this to your children. It's got a lot of vitamins, nutrients, all this good stuff in it. And I mean, I still drink raw milk when we can afford it. It's very expensive from the natural store, but I got this raw milk, and my mom gave it to me, which I'm the youngest of 6, and then my older sister above me in age, which she was 4 at this time. My mom gave it to us both, not thinking anything, not putting 2 and 2 together. E. coli wasn't even barely heard of, and they call it something else. There's another word for E. coli, but E. coli was the short version of the bacteria. And my mom noticed a week or 2 later that I know this is gross, and I know this is going to be in depth, and this may offend some people, and I'm going to be very open, blunt, and I'm not hiding. And so if you get offended by anything whatsoever, you're not going to want to watch this. And I expect that I may lose some subscribers, some friends, some people who like to watch my plant videos, and that's okay with me. Anyways, my mom found that me and my sister had diarrhea really bad, and we were sick. Didn't put anything into it. My sister and I then later on, a few days later, my mom noticed that in our stool, I'll call it stool instead of poop, that there was blood, and that concerned her. That piqued her, kind of like concerning, and took us to the doctor. Doctor just said it must just be something that we ate just bothered our tummy or affected our downstairs, however you would say that. And so my sister got over it, and I believe my mom said a few weeks after that, I was a very active child. I can tell you how active my children are. I just was nonstop. There were times when I was in bouncy seats when I was younger. My mom said, this baby's gonna bounce out of her bouncer seat, because I was so always moving, always doing, always going, playing. And I was just sleeping all the time, and I was very lethargic, and I wasn't moving much, and my mom knew there was something wrong, so kept taking me to the doctors a few times, and they were like, there's really nothing wrong with her. And then the next time my mom went to the doctor, they did my blood, gave me an x-ray or like ultrasounds, and they said that this child is really sick and I need to go be rushed to the hospital. My mom knew that there was something wrong when they put an IV inside of my foot, because my veins were I was so dehydrated they couldn't find veins, and so they put an IV in my foot, and my mom said I didn't flinch, which was very uncommon for a child at 2 years old. And so I was rushed to Seattle Children's, and that is where I stayed for 6 weeks. In that time, there was one night where I had a catheter inside of my leg. It was in an artery in the inner part of my leg because my kidneys were shutting down, and they had me on dialysis. And there was one night, I know it was God, a nurse came in. She decided she was going home for the night, decided to do one more rounds on the kids. And she came in and she said she found me in a pile of blood. Somehow I yanked one of the catheters out of my leg, and I was bleeding to death. And if it was not her doing one more check, if it wasn't God telling her to do another check on the kids, I would have bled to death. And so that happened in that timing. There was one time my dad used to tickle my arms to get my blood pressure to go down. I was on Lasix, which, if you don't know what that is, they're like water pills to remove extra water from my body. And my dad was tickling me one time. It's kind of like blurred together, my memories of what my parents would tell me. And I also had a doctor's appointment in Seattle today, so I had to get up really early. And so when my dad was tickling me to get my blood pressure to go down, he said he was looking down at me, and all of a sudden my pupils took up the whole color spaces, like my pupils dilated, and it was just black. And he said, there's something wrong. And I think it was code blue. I think that's when someone's heart has quit. And my mom and dad, the doctors didn't know my mom and dad were still in the room. And my mom and dad were like, in like 30 seconds, there was like 20 doctors in the room, and they were all working on me. They were trying to get my heart to start back up. And a doctor looked back and says, what are they doing here? And they rushed my mom and dad out. They prepared them for the worst and said that your daughter may not make it during the night. Me. I have a scar. I'm gonna be touching the microphone so it may get loud. I don't know if you can see this. I'll get as close to the camera as I can. I have a scar. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can see that right here on my chest. Kind of a forever wound where they put a tube inside of my heart. A catheter. Hickman catheter is what they called it. I actually had one of the first ones that were coming out. And so that was happening. They would call me Little Squirrel because I couldn't talk very well. And I was in Children's for 6 weeks. They brought me home at 4 weeks, my parents. They thought I was getting better. And my parents said it's like they just walked through the door. I wasn't out of my car seat yet. And my mom and dad heard this ticking noise. And they looked down at me and they could hear my heart beating. They believed that I was having a heart attack when I was 2. And my eyes rolled back in my head. And so they rushed me to the hospital again. I was there for another 2 weeks. So that was the beginning of my childhood, my survival mode, my post-traumatic stress syndrome, or my post-traumatic stress disorder. And I wasn't aware of this until I just turned 34. Growing up, I had normal childhood. My memory started at probably age 4, where I was running away from my parents, and they were going to give me an insulin shot because from all of the hospital stays, what had happened was I was on a dialysis machine, and inside there was a solution that was like sugar-based. And since my kidneys were not functioning 100%, they had me hooked up. My gut would fill up with this solution, collect all the toxins, and then take it back out of my body. And what had happened in that time is that my blood sugar, if you know someone diabetic, you know what I'm talking about. It's so common nowadays, diabetes, spiked up to 12,000. It fried my pancreas. And that's how I became diabetic type 1, insulin dependent, where I had to give myself shots. And so I went home from Seattle, Children's in Seattle, as a diabetic, and that was in June. So I was in there in May, and then like somewhere middle of June I came home. So my early memories, running away from my parents, saying no, I don't want it, ouch, it hurts. And so all I remember is running away. That's all I remembered. And then I have fragmented thinking. And so growing up, doing pokes, checking my blood sugars, doing a lot of shots, I did not take care of myself, and I don't blame my parents whatsoever. They didn't really watch what I ate, and when they did, I rebelled and I did not listen to them. Lots of doctors, lots of blood draws, doctors telling me that I was going to lose my eyesight, which I have lost part of my eyesight. That's how I became blind, half blind. They said my kidneys were going to fail. They told me I was going to lose arms, toes, limbs, all of this stuff. You know, when you're 8, 9 years old, that's something you don't want to hear. And I know a lot of people who don't take care of themselves, because why would anybody in their right mind want to hear that kind of stuff, you know? So I entered into, well, in grade school, I'd always have to bring snacks, and so other kids would always stare at me and be like, when is she gonna eat something? And I don't, and it was just kind of an embarrassing thing for me. And so I had to kind of learn how to have a thick skin, or thicker skin, where I learned at a very early age to disassociate. So that means, for some of you who don't know exactly what that means, it means basically shutting off what's happening around you at that moment and going basically somewhere else. That's the best way I can think of it, where it's like your brain's not there. You know, when we fantasize or when we're thinking about daydreaming, that's kind of like what disassociation is. And so I learned to shut feelings off, to numb myself, to not care what others said to me. And that was grade school. Entering into high school was when everything fell apart. I became angry. I had Christians telling me, you just gotta have faith. You just gotta have faith. And I'm not putting Christians down, but people really need to learn what not to say to people, especially when they're not God. And I started getting bitter, and I started getting like angry and hurt, because here I am, young, and people are telling me that I don't have enough faith, and that I'm gotta have faith of a mustard seed. If you know the Bible at all, that's what it says. Faith of a mustard seed, and you can move mountains. And all of this stuff was being thrown at me by people. And I started getting angry, and I started getting bitter. And around the age of 15 or 16 was when I said, F it. I don't care. Like, I'm gonna live my life the way I want to live my life. And I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm not gonna listen to you. And I didn't care. And that's when I got my first boyfriend. That's when I started partying. That's when I started drinking. That's when I was just drinking. And age 17, I was considered an alcoholic. At age 17, I went to Long Island Teen Challenge in New York. Stayed there for about 6 months. Came back home. Well, anyways, in my high school years, I couldn't keep a friendship. I used people. I smoked a lot of pot. I drank a lot. I didn't really like smoking the pot because it made me feel paranoid, and I always felt I gained a lot of weight from the munchies, and I didn't like to feel out of control because I wanted control. I wanted to make myself feel better or feel worth it, because I didn't feel self-worth. And I didn't feel like anybody wanted me. And I felt like I was on my own. And at a very early age, I was like, you know, put your nose to the grindstone and just do it. And my whole life, I have been like, survive. I need to survive. I need to fight. I need to fight. I need to fight. And I could have easily been a bully. I kind of walked on the fence of being a bully, but that whole time that I felt that way, I go to a therapist. I go to a therapy once a week. So when you've heard in the past on my videos that I was at a meeting or whatever, it's either a support group or I'm at a therapy appointment. And so during high school, all my friends, I wasn't a bully, but a lot of my friends would come to me and say like, oh, so-and-so, they're bothering me, or they said this, or they said that. And I would be the one to rise up and confront or say, I heard you say this. Is this true? Like, nobody really stood up to me. And when they did, I would then come back when it was a fight or flight moment or freeze, I would fight. And I would be like, what'd you say? Like, come again, kind of a thing. And that was really my high school years. I don't have a whole lot of memory in my junior year of high school because I smoked a lot, I partied a lot. From high school, I had boyfriends. The beginning of my senior year, I was supposed to graduate in 2003. I ended up graduating in 2004. I needed help. I knew there was something wrong. I just didn't know what. And so I went to Long Island Teen Challenge, went there for 6 months. And at the end of all of that, I came back. I went back to high school because I'd never finished anything in my whole life. Start a job, quit a job. Start a job, quit a job. And I never had loyalty to a job or responsibility. I didn't want it. And I know I was young still, but that's not an excuse. And I never felt safe. I never felt safe in relationships. I never felt safe in friendships. I never felt safe with my parents. So all that to say about the bullying, like, here I am bullying and getting angry, and I always thought, I have an anger problem. I have an anger problem. My fuse is like this short, you guys. And it wasn't until my pastor said it, and then also a counselor said this to me, is that anger, here you have anger right here, but then what anger is, it's usually a link or like a branch off of other emotions. So here's anger, and anger usually covers up hurt and pain. And someone who is really, I would say, sad and in a lot of pain. And anger was my choice because it fueled me, and it was more of a control kind of a thing for me. And so I became angry. I don't know, I would tell people, I'm just angry. I don't know, I'm just angry. I want to be a fighter. Like, I looked into doing Muay Thai. I looked into MMA for women because it was like this thing that was inside of me that was like burning with hate and anger. But it was a lot of the pain that I had locked inside of my soul from age 2 because I felt like life was like stripped from me. And if I tear up, you guys, it's because I'm going through it right now. And but I knew I knew I wanted to do, and I wanted people to know me. So sometimes I forget what I've been taught, what I've said. So I went to Long Island Teen Challenge, came back from there, went back to high school, graduated. That was one of the most proudest moments of my life because I had actually finished something. I remember walking across that stage and I was like, yes, I was so happy. And from there I went to college for a semester, and it just wasn't for me. It was a college that my sister went to, and I always thought that one of my sisters, Sarah, was the golden child. Her and my brother, my mom kind of favored. That's wrong, by the way. So went to this college. It wasn't for me. Came back home. And then shortly after, I met my husband. At age 19, 20, I believe, I met my husband at a mutual friend's soccer team or soccer game. And I saw him, and I was one of the players. And I started losing my eyesight at age 17. I started noticing when I would go from outside when it was bright out to indoors, or when I would go from dark to light, it was almost like white was covering my eyes. Like I couldn't see. I had to wait a few minutes to be able to have the light match with my eyes, if that makes sense. Like everything was just hard for me. I'd just sit there and I was like, what is wrong with my eyesight? And I knew internally something was happening with my eyesight, and I didn't want to admit it because I would beg God when I was younger, don't take my eyesight, God, don't take my eyesight, God, don't take my eyesight, because I knew I could go blind from diabetes. And I was almost scared to go to the doctor, and I'm still working through things, so I don't have any wisdom to tell you there. But so before I met Jeff, I'm sorry, I'll go on to that. I'll kind of bounce around a little bit. So when I began seeing problems with my eyes, I finally went and made an appointment, and my parents took me. I remember everything that I was wearing. It's almost like it's a stain in my memory, like I call it a watershed moment where something happens, either bitterness or an impression happens in the memory. I was wearing my dark royal blue shirt, had a truck on it, and it says, keep on trucking. My hair was dyed brown. I had a hat on, and I had some earrings in, and I had some Mossimo or mud jeans on. And I went into the eye doctor. His name was Dr. Tester. He worked in Federal Way, Washington at this time. And I went to Auburn, Washington at this time, and went to his office. He checked the back of my eyes, and I had what you call diabetic retinopathy. It's basically where you're not getting enough oxygen into your eyes, and usually when a diabetic has kidney problems, your eyes will shortly follow after having problems with your eyes. I wasn't getting enough oxygen to my eyes, and so my eyes started panicking, and what will happen, your retina will start sprouting up little veins to create more blood flow to your retina. So those veins are weak, and what will happen is that those veins will then burst, and you'll see floaters, and it looks like a little bug crawling across your eye, or like just little bugs. It seriously looks like someone's, like, little tiny bugs are crawling across your eye, but it's actually a little vein that has bursted, and you'll have these little blood bubbles in your eye, and then it will scab over the back of your retina, and that is what causes blindness. I had this. And the doctor even said it. Dr. Tester looked at me and he was like, if you had waited 3 more months, I don't know if I could have saved your eyesight. That affected me. That affected me really bad. And so that's what began the lasering treatments that I was going in for. I've talked about my blindness before in the past. I've just kind of skimmed over it, but it's actually a big deal to me. Because I would give anything to be able to see better, to be able to drive a car, because I can't drive a car. And so I began my laser treatments where they go in, and I called it the eye casket. It was this device that they would put over your eye. They would numb your eye first, and then they would put in this thing. It looked like a cataract, or like a contact, and they would put it on your eye. And they would take this laser machine, and then they would laser the back of your eye where all these little veins have sprouted up, and they would destroy them basically. And you end up having scarring from the lasering, and that is what took away in both my eyes my peripheral. And I had several treatments. It's not, people are like, oh yeah, I know LASIK. And I'm like, no, it wasn't LASIK. It was a laser treatment. It's diabetic retinopathy. And so there are veins and nerves that the doctor can't see. And so when he would hit one of these, it was like your whole face would get like shocked. You can feel it like in your teeth. You could feel it in your skull, and your eye would like roll back and like in your head, because it was like, whoa. And you can't jolt, you can't move, so you're sitting there and you're grinding your teeth. You're like, oh my gosh. And then he said he could give me a shot in my eye, and I refused for the longest time. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm gonna have you put a needle in my eye, which, by the way, I've had 3. It's not funny, but not funny. And so I've had several lasering treatments in my eyes. And then I had to have 2 open eye surgeries in my left eye. And I'll be done with part 1 of this trilogy of my life, what we're going through, plants and pain. And so they cut open my eye one time, or this time coming around, and they removed, my eye had hemorrhaged, my left eye. That's the eye that I barely have any vision out of, this boy. And when you see me, you'll see that this eye will follow where this eye's going. So when I'm looking at you guys, where are you at? There it is, right there. This eye will just kind of follow this way. You'll notice it now every time I talk on camera. So they opened up this eye, and they removed my eye. This eye hemorrhaged, so I had a pile of blood in my left eye. And they went in and they cleaned what is called the vitreous jelly out of my eye, and then filled this eye up basically, I think, with water. And so I had that done in this eye, and then my eye started hemorrhaging again, and so I had to go in and get a shot. They numb your eye, so I didn't feel it, but it's pretty scary when you see this shiny needle coming at you. I didn't see it like when they pulled down my eye. I didn't see it when they put it underneath, but then when they let this and you look down, I could see that bad boy coming, that sparkling, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then you have to hold your eye so still. And then also I have had both cataracts removed. And if you don't know, you probably have heard of it, but this is so detailed, cut your eye where your iris is, the colored part at the edge. They go in, they take out, or this sounds so gross, slurp out your normal lens that is in there that is clouding up. It's like a foggy window, what they describe it like, and it was. It's like looking through fog. And they take that out. I had it on tape. Yes, tape for you newbies or you young people. When they had VHS tapes, I had them record it because I wanted to see what it looked like. I know I'm weird. But they took that and put in this tiny, like rubber, silicone-like lens, and they put it in there. They like fold it in half, put it in there, and then it goes and opens up. And so I have I had cataracts in both eyes, so they did that to both of my eyes. And that all happened right before I met Jeff. And I know this is a super long talk that I just talked to you about, but I'm gonna stop there, and then maybe next week I will go on. And this is leading up to why I got into plants and why plants have actually helped me and how they have helped with my therapy. I don't want to say they've saved my life, but they have helped me deal and get myself out of my head and slow down. And this will all come to a head. I'm gonna try to get this done with this video, and then I'll do the next one. Maybe I'll do a plant video, and then I'll do another part of this segment of my life up until now and how I got into plants. But I will see, we will see. I hope that you will enjoy getting to know me more, and that I'm just not doing plants because it's the thing to do now. It's actually helped me neurologically in my brain. And I love you all, and I'm in it for the long haul, not just to get all those subscribers. And I love doing this, and I love looking at life and nature. It does something for the soul. Talk to you soon.